Good afternoon, everyone. It's a great pleasure to join this meeting and to speak with the next generation of neuroscience researchers. Today, I would like to invite you to think of the human body as an inner orchestra in which the brain, immunity, nutrition, circadian rhythm, and emotion must remain carefully harmonized. I will focus on the examples from our work of omega-3 fatty acids and melatonin and show you how fine-tuning of these nature small molecular pathways can produce profound effect, reducing systemic inflammation, restoring circadian alignment, and transforming treatment for severe psychiatric disorders. To set up the background of the work I'm presenting today, let me briefly introduce myself and my team. I am a psychiatrist working with patients and families struggling with depression for nearly 30 years, and the unmet clinical need lead to every research question we asked. And at the Mind-Body Interface Research Center, the MBI Lab and Care, our mission is translational. From the bench to bedside to improve actual patient care, we utilize everything from placebo-controlled clinical trials, molecular biology, neuroimaging, to recently AI-based technology to investigate the clinical effect and biological mechanisms of mind-body interventions, including nutrition, lifestyle, and traditional medicine such as acupuncture, mindfulness, and yoga. And in nutritional psychiatry, I have a long research track history, especially omega-3 in depression. I co-founded the International Society of Nutritional Psychiatry Research and currently the editor-in-chief of its official journal called Nutritional Psychiatry. I founded the first depression center in Taiwan to provide the evidence-based integrative treatments, which is quite unique in the busy psychiatry service in Taiwan. These are the posters to introduce the treatment modality in depression center, written in Chinese. These are to say that we routinely provide combined care with traditional Chinese medicine, as well as mindfulness, yoga, and many other non-medication therapies. Alongside the mind-body interventions, we provide cutting-edge, non-invasive brain stimulation interventions, including transcranial magnetic stimulation, direct current stimulation, and photobiomodulation. And this is about nutritional therapy, one of our major specialties. I will talk about this later. And here I show you our daily works, so you have an idea about how we use our clinical services to develop the research platform. You may be aware of tragic news of suicides in talented people in academia, campus, or entertainment. Because of my profession, friends always ask me, why did these most elite people get depression and choose to take their own lives when they seem to be at the top of the world? Well, in fact, clinical depression and suicide are illness and symptoms, not a choice to make. And according to recent World Health Organization report, half of world population would have at least one episode of any common mental disorders in lifetime, and 1/4 of world population suffer from at least one episode of clinical depression. Therefore, I would say no one is immune to brain disorders such as depression. About depression, people also ask, why do people get depression? Is depression a disease of civilization? Is depression caused by stress? We often discuss these interesting questions not only in conferences or party conversation, but also in clinical interactions. Recently, I integrated my work from lectures and research and published a paper invited by the current opinion in psychiatry. I focus on evolutionary perspectives and the impact of stress, inflammation, nutrition, circadian rhythm, and the lifestyles. I don't have time to go to the details today, and you are invited to read the full text or scan the QR code to read the Chinese highlight. Let me start with the evolutionary theory of psychoneuroimmunity. From the left, in hunter-gatherer era, early evolutionary pressures from the threats of pathogens, predators, and enemies result in a genetic selection toward inflammation responses for fighting infection and healing wounds, as well as the genetic selection toward brain responses for danger detection and fight and flight response. And in the middle, showing in traditional environments, we exposed to minimally pathogenic organisms and injuries, which induce regulatory immune function and the production of anti-inflammation cytokines. So the anti-inflammation regulation balances the inflammatory bias of genetic selection. But on the right, showing in modern world, prominent chronic psychological challenges replace infectious challenges to activate our old defense systems without early anti-inflammation development because we are now living in a more sanitized environment. Consequently, in modern world, we become living with low-grade chronic inflammation and chronic stress status, and that partially explains the significant increases of various chronic physical and mental disorders, including obesity, dyslipidemia, metabolic disorders, and depression. Now let's focus on nutrition. Our team is interested in omega-3, which is probably the most studied nutrients in brain health and brain evolution. For example, one interesting article in Nature Review Neuroscience proposed that the excess of shell-based diet high in omega-3 fatty acid had a key role to increase the brain-body mass ratio, also known as encephalization, which makes critical advantages in survival and reproduction when chimpanzee evolved into human. And in modern world, the interplay between omega-3 diet and brain health is still ongoing. For the past few centuries, our diet has dramatically shifted from high anti-inflammatory omega-3 to high pro-inflammatory omega-6 ratio. And that is also used to explain the dramatic increases of incidence in many chronic physical and mental disorders. The evidence that omega-3 is important in depression comes from several lines of research. For example, epidemiological studies show the correlation between low dietary fish consumption and high depression prevalence, implying the protection effects from omega-3. And case control studies revealed that the depressed patients were associated with low omega-3 levels. Most importantly, the placebo-controlled clinical trials showed omega-3 is significantly better than placebo to improve depression. In 2003, we published one of the first RCT to support omega-3's antidepressant effects. And these are from recent 3 years, including our study in the blue, supporting omega-3's effect in recurrent major depressive disorders to use as monotherapy in migraine and in preventing bipolar relapse. Despite of accumulating research evidence, there is a huge gap to clinical practice applications. To help the physician to use omega-3 in clinical practice, I invited the top high-cited researchers to work together to publish a clinical practice guideline of omega-3 fatty acid in depression treatment. And I think nothing is more rewarding to see our clinical guideline changes the prescription and help the patient all over the world. And now I am promoting omega-3 EPA as the first-line treatment in mild to moderate major depressive disorder. As we know that there is no statistical differences between placebo and antidepressant drugs in treating mild and moderate depression, and the major clinical guidelines do not recommend routine medication use in such populations. But it's not ethical to use placebo, so I propose that omega-3 EPA could be an evidence-based, ethical, safe, and scalable consideration as the first-line antidepressant treatment in such populations. Recently, I guest edited a special issue for psychiatric annuals focusing on nutritional psychiatry, and I proposed this out-of-the-box idea. Diet is important. In 2025 Nature Medicine paper with a 30-year clinical observation in over 100,000 people, the secrets are revealed about the healthy aging dietary pattern, and they are eat more fruit, veggies, whole grains, nuts, beans, and most importantly, omega-3s. In addition, try not to eat trans fats, salt, sugary drinks, and ultra-processed junk foods. The good diet helps everyone, regardless gender, smoker, physical activity, and high BMIs. So this is another important message. Eat smart, especially omega-3 fatty acid. Now, the next important message, sleep well. I want to take you on a journey through circadian rhythms and melatonin. Our story again begins with evolution. As we evolve, our ancestor lived in synchronization with the rising and setting of the sun, and our internal clocks turned into this nature rhythm and finally stemmed into our genes. And the scientists who discovered the molecular and cellular mechanisms were awarded by the 2017 Nobel Prize. However, in modern world, some need to do the night shifts and others enjoy nightlife, artificial light, digital screens, and the 24/7 lifestyle. This disruption of our circadian rhythms has profound impact on our mental and physical health. We also published a few papers in clinical and basic research to show that it's not only that depressed patients were associated with circadian rhythm disruption or melatonin metabolic impairments, but also many melatonergic agents can be used as antidepressants. We can also consider melatonin as a nutrient, a natural compound in our brains. I don't have time to talk about the details of our research in melatonin, but I would like to draw your attention on this one. In our 2019 JAMA Psychiatry paper, we compared all the pharmacological and non-pharmacological treatments in the management and prevention of delirium. And it is surprising that the low-dose melatoninergic agents had the best effect in delirium prevention. So it's really amazing that small amounts of natural compounds like melatonin can deal with the most severe psychiatric condition like delirium. In traditional Chinese medicine, we have a meridian concept of organ clock. Each organ is believed to have a peak activity during a specific 2-hour window within the 24-hour circle. For example, optimal liver function occurs between 1 a.m. and 3 a.m. Consequently, TCM practitioner advise being asleep during these hours to facilitate effective liver detoxification and regeneration. By chance or not, the ancient wisdom seems to align with our modern knowledge of circadian clocks. Finally, I would like to talk about the impact of digital world to mental well-being in young generation, a phenomenon I called digital pandemic in my recent publication in Current Opinion in Psychiatry. I proposed 3 transmission mechanisms for digital pandemic. First, the AI algorithms designed for attention economy, feeding emotion triggering information into echo chambers, systematically amplifying the negative emotion and addictive behaviors. And second, the malicious users who anonymously commit cyberbullying, abuse, exploitations, and spread harmful ideologies. And third, the undetected mental disorder users who unconsciously amplify negative emotion, spread emotional manipulation in digital networks. To understand how this digital pandemic affects youth brains, behaviors, and immunity, I applied the evolutionary mismatch I just presented, including low physical activity, unhealthy diet, and disrupted circadian rhythms. And in this review article, I further emphasize the amplification effects from virtual social stress and even virtual psychological trauma on the phone-based overprotective childhood. And to deal with this digital pandemic, we not only need the traditional mind-body interventions, but also digital therapeutics based on AI technology. Here I provide 2 QR codes, one for Chinese summary, one for reading reflection, if you are interested in this topic and want to contribute your thoughts on this important issue. Now to conclude, let's move more, eat right, sleep well, reduce screen time maybe, and practice anti-inflammation lifestyles. So pick up your wearable devices, watch your step counts and sleep data, and maybe your HRV data when practicing mindfulness and yoga. To end this talk, I would like to invite you to Taiwan in November. Join us at the 16th Mind-Body Interface International Conference. The theme this year is Transforming Mind-Body Medicine from Lab to Life. We will cover AI, neuromodulations, and lifestyle medicine. And thank you for your attention.